So I am going to have to do this manually since for some reason my clicker is not working right now. So this talk is on researching buildings, but I do have another talk called researching your home or your house and how about going to do that. If you're interested more in that topic, you can go up on YouTube, search for the Louisville Historical League channel, and search for Research Your House. And that should pop up if you're interested in looking more into home research. So what are the reasons why you might want to research a building? I get a lot of comments about when it was built, who designed it, where can I find drawings? I get that comment a lot. Where can I find photos, historic photos of my building? And is there any interesting history associated with my building? So that's some of the questions I get when I do answer emails from people doing research. So in getting all these questions, it started me on an OCD process, obsessive compulsive disorder. I started out with a database of just a couple of historic architects, about 100 buildings, and that database has now grown to over 3,200 buildings that I keep on an Excel spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet is contained here at the library. You go on the computer screens here, you go into Kentucky History Research, the little green tree icon, and you see Steve Weiser's architectural database, and you can click onto that. We go back. Oops. Hang on, hitting the wrong buttons there. There we go. And this will pop up. And this is just a very small section of the database. And I dated up top, so I've dated the most recent version is October 14th, 2025. And it's got the building type, the name of the building, the street number. The street number is separated out from the street name, and I'll explain why in a minute. Who the architect designer was, when it was built. I'm now including where I got that information at. I had not been doing it. From now on, whenever I input something onto my database, I want to tell specifically where I got that information. In fact, already tonight, I've already gotten a building here that was at the Kentucky School for the Blind, who that architect was, and I'll indicate where I got that info. And then something, usually information about the building off to the right there. So how do you best to use this database? Well, you go up to the Find feature on the menu bar of Excel, and you hit the Find, and then a little text box pops up, and then you want to put in some sort of unique identifier to search for. That's one reason why I put the street number on there, because usually if I'm looking for something, I'll look, the street number is pretty unique, so you put that in there. May search for the building. Or here, the building I'm looking for is the Fraternal Order of Eagles building. So I put in Eagle. You put in Eagle, and there's not too many things named Eagle here in Louisville, so and that popped up. So there it is, and how it works. There's the street number there, so either Eagle or the street number probably could have popped that information up for me. And as noted earlier, I am putting in where I get this data from, so that in the future, if someone's interested in researching more about a particular topic, they'll know exactly where I found that data. And this was from a March 1916 Courier Journal, is where I got this information from. And I also have an unknown section down in the, and by the way, the database is organized by the last name of the architect designer. So that's how it's organized, is by the architect designer, not so much the building name or the year it was built. But I have an unknown section here. Whenever I come across the building, I don't know who the architect was. I put it under my unknown section, and eventually I will find out who it was. And I will add that and correct that information. And one of the biggest buildings I searched for, high and low, is Liberty Hall, also known as the Oddfellows Building. It's downtown Louisville, which is under the threat of demolition. And I have looked, you wouldn't believe how many data sources I went through to try and find the architect for this Liberty Hall building. I still have yet to find it. In fact, I went to the Oddfellows archives are at the Filson Historical Society. I said, okay, well, I'll go and look at their report of meeting, right? The report of meeting certainly will have a report of when the building was being built back in 1898. So I started in 1896, looking at the report of meeting, 1897, 1898, and what I found was in the meeting reports, it would say building committee report, and would have the name of the building committee chair, but it didn't list what they talked about. So that was a dead end. They did not list any details of building this building. So hopefully one day I'll find out. I have a good guess as to who might have designed it, but anyways, that's... So some things to look at, local history books. Fortunately, here in Louisville, we have wonderful authors who have written history books for almost every neighborhood we have in Louisville. And they just are chock full of all sorts of information. There's a small little book here called the Cherokee Area History. It's a small little pamphlet, but on every page, every block, it talks about the houses that are there and the architects. And it's just a wonderful research by Ann Karen, who wrote that. Sam Thomas also did a book on Crescent Hill, and all these books. Stratton Hammond book talks all about the Stratton Hammond homes. This little book out in the Valley Station in southwest Jefferson County, a treasure trove of information. So throughout our neighborhoods, they have these history books. And there they are here at the main downtown library. We have a whole bookshelves of these local history books. Here's a good example. There was a book printed in the 1930s called Beautiful Crescent Hill. It was sort of a real estate PR pamphlet highlighting why you should build homes in the Crescent Hill neighborhood. And this one architect, Arthur Smith, listed all of the houses and the street addresses and everything that he did in the Crescent Hill area. In fact, I just did a talk on Crescent Hill neighborhood, and one of the attendees, I was giving out copies of this book, by the way. I have a lot of reissued copies. I was giving them out. And this one woman was flipping through it, and she screamed and said, "Here's my house." She found her house in this book and found about more information about it. So you never know what you might find in these local history books. Good example of this building here. This is in the Germantown area. Very old structure, old house. It's an Italianate design. And I would get questions like, who did that? Who designed that? What's this about? Because it's totally different from all the other shotgun houses in Germantown. So, fortunately, there was a neighborhood book, Walks Through Germantown, by Caroline Aiken and Natalie Andrews, and it talks about this house and the history of it. There's some more information about it. So yeah, we were able to find that. The local architects had a major exhibit back in 1912. It's called the First Architectural Exhibit of Louisville Chapter American History of Architects. Neat little book. We, as the architectural chapter, in 2012, I think it was. Yeah, the 100th anniversary of this, we reprinted that original book, so we reprinted it. And that's a great source, because in this book it has all these nice old buildings that the architects back in the early 1900s designed, gave their names and what they did. So that's a nice resource that we use periodically. But this book, even more so, The Progression of Architecture in Kentucky. Again, there was another architectural exhibition at the Speed Museum in the 1930s, and all the prominent architects of Louisville had these displays. This one is E.T. Hutchins, which some of you may have heard of. And you see these small little images at this display. Some of these are indicated down here in text to talk about them. But I literally have gotten out magnifying glasses to look at this stuff to find out what is that, what did he build, where's that at. So this is a lot of the prominent architects in the 1920s and early 1930s did a display at the speed, and what a marvelous resource that is, that book. Again, I get a lot of comments as to who the architect designer is. So here we start to go down the rabbit hole of the Courier-Journal newspaper archives. If you get on the library website, you go there and you look underneath the research menu tab, research databases, scroll down to find the Courier-Journal historical. There's two Courier-Journal sites here. There's the more modern one here, and then the historical one down below. Obviously, we want to look at that. And to access this database, you do need your library card. You have to put in your barcode number and your password. Now, if you don't have your password, you can say, "Forgot my password," and the library will send you a password or what your password might be. So that's a good way of going about doing it. I had to do that myself when I started using this. And by the way, your computer will keep this information so that next time you use the database, you don't have to reinsert any of that. So that's a nice feature that computers retain that information. So then once you get into the archives, this main page pops up with a search engine on it. And there's some tips down below here as how best to go about using this search engine. So I used this building that we're here today in. We're in the main downtown library. So I put in library R, architect R, York Street. And for York Street, I used quotation marks on either side so that I basically bundle that term so that when the search engine looks through the newspaper, it's looking for York Street and not York or street. So you need to bundle the terms where you can. So I put that in there and I said, okay, well, who's the architect for this building here? Let's see if that will pop up. And sure enough, I got a whole range or several pages that mention the architect for this building here. And you need to, whenever you're doing searches, I used architect, but you could also use construction, building, and alternative building names. This was a Carnegie Library. You may have to use Carnegie Library as a term. If you know who the original owner's name was of the building, that will help. But you have to play around with some of these search terms to find out exactly. They're not as easy as this building was. This was a pretty prominent building and pretty easy to find the architect. But anyways, just play around with it. You should be able to find it. One other source is Business First newspaper here in Louisville. Business First is a weekly business newspaper, and they pretty much cover anything building related, business related here. And fortunately, the library on their system, in their database, has Business First of Louisville newspaper. It's a fairly, I'm now retired and I can't afford the confiscatory price of Business First. It's over $100, a couple of $100 to get a subscription to this newspaper. But on the library website, it is free. You can go in there and look at it for free. So when that homepage, when you click on it and the main website pops up, it doesn't tell you this. For why, I don't know. But for me to get to the digital copy of Business First, I have to click the little blue tab up there, the little blue icon. And then this page pops up and it says digital version, digital edition down here. So you click that, and this pops up, you click that. Then this week's edition of Business First will pop up. And then you can scroll through the various pages. Here's a project over in southern Indiana, Jeff Boat, that is being developed. But any new building being constructed here in Louisville, I'm always, every week I look at business. I actually have on the calendar, my digital calendar on my computer. I have it noted. Every Tuesday I look at the most recent edition of Business First. Now then, any public or civic building normally has what we call a building dedication plaque. And here are some of the ones that I've taken photographs of over the years. Some fairly old, some fairly new. And gosh, I wish every building had a dedication plaque on it. Tells, of course, the politicians want to get their names up top here, but fortunately they allow us architects and builders to put our names down below. And this is a fairly easy thing to do for us architects. We should, in our specifications, put a section in there to put a building plaque on our buildings that we design. But fortunately, the civic buildings, they require that. But anyways, that's a great source of information. Also, what I call architectural details. Some architects design in a very distinctive style of building. One of those is Arthur Loomis of Clark and Loomis Architects. You always know a Clark and Loomis building by the staircase design that they've done. I get asked a lot, is this a Clark and Loomis building? Well, send me a photograph of their stairs and I'll tell you. There's a prominent building out in the Jeffersontown area that claims to be a Clark and Loomis building. I said, well, send me a photograph of that staircase. Let me take a look at it. Here is the staircase. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. Let me go back. There's the staircase. What do you think? You think Clark and Loomis designed that building? I don't think so. So, yeah, I call it that. No, that's not the case. But yeah, some architects have very distinctive styles. Stratton Hammond, famous architect here, who designed a lot of beautiful homes, he literally put his name on every home that he designed in the year that it was built. And I've seen this on numerous Stratton Hammond homes, and very fascinating that he would do that. That he was very proud of his buildings. I'm interested that the owners allowed him to do that too. When buildings are getting built, sometimes architects will put their names on the construction fence around the building site, so that immediately tells you who's building that structure. Obituaries. I have looked at famous architects' obituaries to find out what they did, what they designed. Jasper Ward has a number of buildings listed in his obituary, and Fred Lewis of the famed Lewis and Henry firm also would list buildings. And so I got information from that as well. So looking up the obituary of the architect or building owner or whatever could give you some clues as to who did what, when it was built. Again, public and civic buildings usually have cornerstones or dedication plaques again that tell the exact date, the year that it was built. Here's the Louisville Public Library over in Parkland, erected 1907. So cornerstones, always looking for those. Now then, city directories are another great source of information. At the main downtown library, they have city directories from 1925 up to today. And you can go there and search when buildings were, well, I'll explain how to do that in a second, how to find out when buildings were built. And I always say on a good tip on coming down to the downtown library is come down on a Sunday. It's free parking all the way around. But if you do have to come and pay for parking, use the library parking lot across York Street. They still have coin meters here in this area, and it drives me nuts because I don't have any coin. Who has coins anymore to feed meters? The meters downtown take credit cards, and I've asked for them to put credit card meters out here, which they don't do, because you could be here in this library for several hours doing research, and to keep feeding quarters into meters is crazy. But the parking lot for the library, which is across York Street, gives you 2 to 3 times longer for your quarter than the ones on the street that are the city of Louisville. So that's just a tip if you do have to come down here, or come down after 6 p.m. when they no longer check the meters. So now then, tips for searching city directories. In the back of the old city directories are the buildings listed by their street address, not by their names, but by their street address. And that's what we're looking for, is the street address. And so as you go into the city directories, you may say start in 1950. You look for that street address. If that building is there, okay. Go to like 1940. Is that building there in 1940? Is it there in 1930? If it's not there in 1930, well, when between 1930 and 1940 did it show up? Go to 1935. Is it there or not? And you whittle this down to where you find out when it first shows up in the city directory, which means that's when it was built. That's when it actually has an official city address. So you know the year before. Let's say if you found the first indication it was 1934 in the city directory, but it's not in the 1933, well, that building was more than likely built in 1933. So you always search backwards through the city directories. One other little complication to this is in 1909, they renumbered the streets, and that throws everyone for a loop. But the 1909 street directory is sort of the Rosetta Stone of street numbers, because they give both the new and the old address that you can then figure out what the address prior to 1909 was, and then you also already know what it is after 1909. So anyways, that's one of those little things that you come across in doing research that kind of throws up a block to you every so often. So now then, you can access these city directories. You don't have to come downtown. You can go to your neighborhood library. I go to the Crescent Hill Library, get on their computer system, also with the little green tree icon, city directories, there you go. They have the ones prior to 1925 digitally as well. So you don't have to come downtown to do it. I like the hard copies myself, but you can do the digital as needed. There are all the digital copies that are listed from the 1830s up to 1923. Okay, this again is the Courier Journal Historical Database. What's that? Research. Okay. Now then, the internet. Fortunately, that helps us out. Us modern researchers use the internet all the time with websites and various things to look at in the wrong direction again. So some of the local architects have Wikipedia pages. Here is for Luckin and Farley, which is actually located right across the street here from the downtown library. But Luckin and Farley has a nice Wikipedia page. And Luckin and Farley was founded actually back in the 1850s by Henry Whitestone, a very legendary architect of Louisville. D.X. Murphy was the firm after Whitestone, and then Luckin and Farley came in after D.X. Murphy. But anyways, on that Wikipedia page, they list a lot of their buildings as well that they've built. And they have links to some more Wikipedia of those historic buildings. Architect websites or a wealth of information. I'm always looking at the architects' websites, finding out what are they building, what are the new proposals. I've literally found buildings that have yet to be proposed, have yet to be announced via the media on architectural websites. One time I published one of these on my Facebook page, and I got an irate call from the architect the next day saying, "Where'd you find that? How'd you get that? Why you put that up on Facebook?" I said, "Well, I got it off your website." So those things happen. But anyways, websites are always cool to look into. Googling the information all the time. Google sometimes helps you out. Real estate websites, Zillow and Redfin and others, they list a lot of details. This notes the architect for this house out in Anchorage. This is a phenomenal little website. It's called Louisville Then and Now. Jason Rayburn, and he has an accomplice, I forget her name, But anyways, they're posting on a daily basis a lot of history about Louisville. And a lot of this history involves buildings. And I'm always looking at this Facebook page to find out new information. And one thing they just popped up on recently, they were talking about, I just mentioned it earlier, about this Fraternal Order of Eagles building, which is located over here at 2nd and York Street. I said, oh, that's neat. Well, look at this down in the corner. It says Thomas J. Nolan Architect. So it listed, and I never knew that information, so I was able to put that on the architectural database. Facebook is a great resource. Sometimes when I'm really frustrated, I can't find what I'm looking for, I'll put it out there. I said, does anyone know anything about this building? And literally, I will get an email saying, yes, I do, and here's the information. Where can I find drawings of my building? Get a lot of requests for this. Here are some of the historic architectural plans that are out there. Conrad Caldwell House, a Norm Sweet House, which is over by Iroquois Park. This was a modern house that was out on the East End. And this is the elevation for the modern addition here at the main downtown library. I got those drawings not too long ago. I was called over a number of years ago to look at a house over off Zorn Avenue. They wanted to know who the architect was. So I go over there and they go, we got these plans. And I looked at it, and down in the very small corner, very small, it said Clark and Loomis Architects. So we were able to solve that mystery. But pretty interesting going about finding architectural drawings. So where do you find these architectural drawings? The Filson Historical Society is the only archival resource in the area that keeps architectural drawings. And they have architectural drawings from most of the major architects like Jasper Ward, Aerosmith, Whitestone, Dietz, Murphy. And some of the descendants of architects have drawings too. For instance, Pat Murphy, who was connected to the Nolan and Nolan architectural firm, he has the Nolan and Nolan archives. But unfortunately, most of the architectural firm drawings have been lost in one way or another. I found out a number of years ago that the Clark and Loomis drawings, famous architects, their drawings were lost in the 1937 flood. They had been stored down in the basement of a downtown building that flooded. The Lewis and Henry drawings, unfortunately, were lost when that firm closed, and their landlord literally tossed out their archives. He tossed out a lot of revenue with that. Those are very valuable drawings. And unfortunately, if there's no successor firm, a lot of times these drawings are lost to time. Now, whenever I see an architect who has passed away, I will contact the family and say, hey, before you toss the drawings, let me come over and take a look at them, or get them in touch with the Filson Historical Society. We try and save what. There was this one architect who passed away about 25 years ago. I wanted to wait a couple of weeks after his death to contact the family. I called up his wife. She goes, Steve, this past weekend we just went down to his office and tossed everything. Oh, I felt so. So now I do not wait several weeks. I call within a week or so. Where can I find historic photos of the building? The Filson Historical Society has photo archives. The University of Louisville has the best photo archives. You can actually email them to see if they have your building, give them the address or give them some information. They should be able to tell you if they have it in their archive or not. Other possible locations are the Facebook, Then and Now, Neighborhood Historic Books, and the Courier Journal archives. Historic maps. I always love this map here, the 1858 map of Louisville. It was done by a guy by the name of Gustav Bergman, who's buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. He was a surveyor and literally took 10 years to put this map together, but it is a treasure trove of information. If you would like to see it, you go to the Library of Congress website, loc.gov, put in 1858 map, not so much Louisville, put in Jefferson County, 1858 map of Jefferson County, and it should pop up, Jefferson County, Kentucky. and this will pop up. And this is a highly digitized map. You can zoom in and out. It has a lot of great detail to it. Here's a good example of it. This is the near the Crescent Hill area. I live right in this general area. But you can see where the houses are located, names of the property. It's just a phenomenal resource, 1858. And then from there are maps like every 10 years of Louisville that update from that information. Here's the 1884 map of Louisville with the houses and the property owners and all that. So these maps are great, and here at the main library they have a lot of these maps here actually in the map drawers that you can look at. Sanborn maps are also a great research item. You get to this also via that green icon, and you click on genealogy, newspapers and maps on the website, connects you over to Sanborn maps. You go in there, Kentucky, Louisville, select the date. Usually the 1905, 1906 versions are what I typically use. Some of the later versions don't have as much information. And then the street names and all pop up. They tell you which map, where it's located, what sheet number it is. And then ultimately you will get to something like this. On the Sanborn map, they have the street information on it, where the houses might be. I use this a lot for downtown. Most of these buildings have been demolished in downtown Louisville, but if I'm looking for a specific historic structure, I can come to the Sanborn to find out exactly where it was located and more information as well on it. National Register of Historic Places is another good database. We have over 226 properties listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and there's actually a Wikipedia site with all that information, and you literally click on this information and that data will pop up. So this is a wonderful resource. I use it periodically on historic properties here in Louisville. So here's an example of me going through a research project that's recent. So I was down over off Meriwether Street, and I saw this construction site going on. I said, whoa, what in the world is going up here? What is that about? So I took a photograph of the street that was on. It was on Bland Street near Meriwether. I did not see any street numbers on this. All I knew was it was on Bland Street and there was something major being built. So there's a website called the Louisville Metro Business Portal. We architects use this for various logistics on permitting and zoning and various things. But you can, anyone can use this, not just architects or construction folks. It's public information. And of course I have my own, I have access to it, but you can create your own account, sign up for it, it's free to use. And then they also have a little search engine as well. And I just put in Bland Street. Put in Bland, what might be being built on Bland Street? And I put that in. And sure enough, all this information pops up and gives me the owner's name, Volunteers of America and States. So they're doing something there. What are they doing? Now what do I do with this information? Now that I know who's doing the project, I then went to the Courier-Journal website to say, maybe there's an article that has been written about this project. Sure enough, I go there, Volunteers of America. This article was written, I don't have the date on it. It was earlier this year. But this is the project. It also lists who the architect is and everything else about it. So that's one way of finding out that information. Also here at the Courier-Journal, I'll explain here in a second, they have a nice little thing that you can use as well. In the Courier-Journal a few years ago, 2022, they had this beautiful modern house that was published. And I said, wow, what architect designed that? That's really cool. But where's it at? In the article, it doesn't mention the location. The architect, it was a sort of a phantom project, but it's very neat. What's this all about? All it gave me was the owner's name, Rob Markham at Mannix LLC. Who is that and what's this about? So here I go on the Secretary of State website. Since this is an LLC, limited liability company, that name should be on this registry site here. Let's find out who Mannix LLC is. I put in that information, and it gives me this name. It's registered by Bob Markham, who's the owner. So we got that information, so that pans out. And the library here has a thing called Jefferson County PVA, Property Valuation Administration, I guess. I'm not sure what all PVA stands for, but something of that nature. You can click on that icon, put in the name of the owner, Mannix LLC. When you put that in, all this information pops up. It's like, wow, this Mannix LLC, he owns a lot of stuff, it's got a lot going on. And when you scroll through the photographs, voila, there's that house, there's the address, and that's how we found it. There it is there. We were able to even find the floor plan of the house. By the way, let me go back to that just one last time if we can. And this house was designed by a Utah architect in southern Utah. So, or was it Nevada? It was St. George, what is St. George? Is that Nevada or Utah? Anyway, southern Utah, I believe. But anyways, it was designed by another architect not even located here. So very fascinating how we came about all that information. Okay, future challenges in researching. The Courier-Journal is not like it used to be. They don't publish enough information as they used to do, so that has dwindled a bit as an archival resource. And the street directories do not contain as much information. Back in the day, they would tell the profession of the person who lived at the house or the building. They give a lot of information which today they would never do. But so the street directories, city directories are not as helpful as they are today. There's now a lot of what we call hidden ownerships, trusts, LLCs, etc. Just like that house I was just showing you by Mannix LLC. A lot of these building owners are being hidden by a complex web of ownership trusts and LLCs. And these digital website information will disappear at some point. And obituaries do not contain as much information. In fact, some people don't even put their obituaries in the newspaper anymore, which is very sad for us researchers. The obituaries of the past would tell you everything, even almost what they ate for breakfast. They told so much information back then. Here's a good example of LLCs and trust and all this. This house here doesn't give the name of who owns it or whatever. It's a big challenge now to figure out. You can do it. You can invest some time, but it's going to take you a while to figure out some of this data. So in summary, in doing building research, you can use the internet, the PVA website of the library, city directories, the newspapers, local history books, my database, old maps, and Kentucky Secretary of State website. But final advice, research can be extremely frustrating, even for us most experienced historian researchers. I can go down those rabbit holes for hours at a time trying to look for the right information. So so for you novices and amateurs out there trying to do this, just be patient, take your time. Eventually you will get there and find what you're looking for. Thanks for attending. Any comments or questions on that? Thank you all very much.